You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Ahsoka Tano will be a Jedi again in the upcoming Ahsoka TV show. Hello there, I'm the Negotiator, and today I'm going over a theory that's existed in my mind for quite a while, and it's the fact that I have no doubt that Ahsoka Tano will become a Jedi at least by the end of her self-titled series. And as much as I and many others love her proclamation of self-defiance against the title in Rebels,
I am no Jedi.
there have been two instances since then that I feel have been building up to this change in her character. The first is pretty hard to ignore. It's the fact that she is heard along with the other Jedi spirits at the end of Rise of Skywalker, where Rey is specifically calling for the Jedi spirits to be with her. But the other bit of evidence that I don't think is talked about as often is just 5 months after the Rise of Skywalker released, we got the final few episodes of the Clone Wars where Ahsoka has this exchange with Yoda.
I did my duty as a citizen.
Not as a Jedi.
No, not yet.
You can't tell me that this isn't seeds planted for a character arc to be tackled. One that could pay off with just why we hear Ahsoka with the Jedi spirits. And on top of all of this, just 6 months after the Clone Wars episode is when we got introduced to Ahsoka in live action in the Mandalorian Season 2 episode called The Jedi. And while fans of her character know that word has weighted and complex meaning for our favorite Togruta, I think it's pretty purposeful that Lucasfilm chose to introduce this fan favorite character to a brand new, broader audience with this very specific title. The Mortis trilogy are a few episodes rife with metaphor and greater meta implications on the Star Wars galaxy. It's been analyzed to hell and back, but the one aspect I don't see talked about a lot is the Dagger of Mortis. When looking at the Dagger of Mortis and the switching of hands that happens to it, it becomes fairly obvious what it represents. It starts off handed to Obi-Wan, making it his responsibility to be used to defeat the growing dark side. It then gets stolen by said dark side. However, it ends up being used to extinguish the light. So essentially, the Dagger of Mortis represents Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, being seen and used as a tool, be it by the Jedi Order or even the Sith. Or at least that's my interpretation of the text. Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's shadow. Now, if you're familiar with Star Wars, you might know that George Lucas is a big Jungian psychology nerd, which is where the concept of the shadow archetype comes from. It represents the negative aspects of one's personality, and in Star Wars it's often shown in its villains as the shadow to the protagonist, and as a path where the hero could possibly end up. There were 3 villains in the prequels used as tools by Palpatine: Maul, Dooku, and Grievous, and all 3 share aspects of Vader. Maul's ferociousness, Dooku being a fallen Jedi, and Grievous being more machine now than, well, whatever he is. All 3 hinted to Anakin's potential future, and the cycle continued with Luke and Vader. Luke even sees himself in Vader's mask at the Cave of Dagobah's Force vision. What he fears most is what he could become. Hey there, the Negotiator here. It is 4 a.m. and I just finished watching Andor. Overall, I really enjoyed it, but I do think it felt more like a transitionary episode between Season 1 and Season 2 than it did really a finale, if that makes any sense. The character dynamics have changed, and there's certainly a progression of everything that has happened. However, no plot threads have necessarily been wrapped up outside of the fact that Cassian is now more dedicated to the cause, which itself is really exciting. It feels a little hard to judge the finale when there's so many plot threads that still have yet to be resolved, but at the same time, Andor has been an absolute delight of a show. It is my favorite Star Wars television, so the only major crime is that I have to wait 2 whole years now before getting these resolutions. The mystery of Master Sifo-Dyas, who ordered the creation of the clone army, is an interesting one. Originally in the Attack of the Clones script, the name was going to be Sifo-Dyas, a pseudonym for Darth Sidious, who in early drafts was going to be the one to commission the army. But after a mistype, and George thinking it over I assume, the decision was made to make Sifo-Dyas his own Jedi character who commissioned the clone army in secret and died 10 years before the Clone War. To add to the mystery, Jango didn't even know who Sifo-Dyas was and claimed to be hired by a man named Tyrannus. So what's the deal? This was originally going to be answered in early drafts of Revenge of the Sith, but rewrites put more focus on Anakin and less on the how the Clone Wars was orchestrated by Palpatine. Years later, we got our answer in Clone Wars Season 6. One of Qui-Gon's first lines we hear in The Phantom Menace is so important to the Skywalker saga.
Don't center on your anxieties, Obi-Wan. Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs.
And as we know, the future is always in motion, so not centering on any anxieties of what may come is the best thing for a Jedi to do. Unfortunately, Anakin gets a vision of his mother's death, and then later the death of his wife, and it's that fear of loss that sends him down a dark path. Luke sees a vision of his friends in trouble, which disrupts his training and opens the possibility of following Vader's example. Leia has a vision of the death of her son, which leads to her ending her Jedi training and relying on Luke to train her son. Luke in The Last Jedi sees a vision of what Ben Solo could bring and once again acts on fear, even if that was just for a moment. And Rey's arc is all about fear of what she can become, as shown in her visions, bookending Qui-Gon's quote with Luke's wisdom.
Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny.
It's interesting that through the POV of the movies, Dooku and Qui-Gon never meet. However, their similarities and differences give great insight to just who these two characters were and their relationship as master and apprentice. Both Qui-Gon and Dooku were considered rebellious to the Jedi Council and fought for what they deemed was right in the face of opposition. Dooku even suggests that he could have used Qui-Gon's help during Episode 2, if he were still alive. But would Qui-Gon really help his old master in raising an army and starting a war for the good of ending corruption? In Tales of the Jedi Episode 2, Justice, we get to see just how far Dooku would take things for his cause, while Qui-Gon on the other hand would step up and show that thinking in the moment and instilling change through the next generation is a beneficial and sometimes the necessary option for the future. A lesson Dooku never gives thought, even though at the end he does sing the praises of his Padawan, just as Qui-Gon would do the same for his. Do you think Vader has a shred of humanity left in him when confronting his old master again in the season finale of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show? It was absolutely gut-wrenching when we finally saw the remains of Anakin beneath that mask, which prompted Obi-Wan to respond,
"I'm sorry, Anakin. For all of it."
But what was surprising and took me off guard is that Vader gives Obi-Wan some sense of comfort in saying that it was all Vader that caused the metaphorical death of Anakin Skywalker. And now Obi-Wan is able to have closure with himself and in Anakin, the student he thought he failed. But why would Vader do that? Why give Kenobi that sense of comfort? Perhaps it is as simple as Vader taking pride in his decisions that have brought him here, and this is how he gloats to his former master. But I think it goes deeper. I think there is, of course, still a shred of Obi-Wan's former Padawan wanting to give his master just a bit of relief after years of torment to them both. Do you know how I would fix Book of Boba Fett? The show is probably my least favorite Star Wars live-action series. It doesn't mean I didn't have some fun with it, but I think it suffered from a lack of focus, especially when The Mandalorian showed up and the show suddenly changed gears for 2 whole episodes. Those are great episodes, it just was truncated to the end of the season pretty abruptly. So what I would do is take those 2 episodes and re-edit them, cut them up and spread them out through the season so we have parallel journeys of 2 Mandalorians finding their tribe and what that means to them. The first episode can have Mando's introduction, second episode is when he is with the Armorer, third episode is his return to Tatooine, fourth episode is his trip to find Grogu, fifth episode can be about Grogu's training, seventh episode remains largely the same, and the final episode is actually already a pretty great melding of the 2 characters' arc in a big explosive finale. With the final episodes of Tales of the Jedi, the age-old discussion of retcons came up again, as what was depicted in the episode did not match what was told in the Ahsoka novel from 2016. Which brings up the question, is there one consistent canon, or is there still a hierarchy of canon like there was in the old days? If you ask me, yes, there is still a hierarchy of canon, but it looks nothing like this. Instead, it's just two layers, screen canon and paper canon. Screen canon, being film, TV, and video games, continues to drive the franchise forward because frankly, it's what makes the most money. And because of that, paper canon, books and comics, are largely regulated to supplemental materials that add and inform on screen canon stories, but never overstep. It's because of this where retcons can exist, as more creative freedom is given to screen canon creatives. Is this a bad thing? It depends who you ask. I'm pretty loose with canon anyway, and believe the only canon that matters is the one that you believe yourself. Hello there, I hope you enjoyed my first ramblings video. It's a compilation of the last 2 weeks of shorts I've been putting out. And if you enjoyed any of the topics, please let me know your favorites in the comments, and if enough people comment the same thing, I'll consider making a full video on that topic. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and don't forget to subscribe below for more videos. This is The Negotiator, signing out.